Hello everyone, starting out. So with this particular mesh, everything is still fairly non-destructive. We can see this by shift clicking on ever scroll in the Q menu, and by pressing shift and spacebar, we can actually begin scrolling through all of the modifiers via auto scroll, and you can see how this object was put together. So it started off with me using a couple of outsets, doing a couple of circle cuts on a shape that was transformed into this from basically being a cube. So I started off with a cube, turned it into a polysphere using a sphere cast, and here we are. So instead of boring you with the starting part of the process and talking about inset and cutting on curves and dealing with curved shapes, we're just going to jump in at this point. So I'm going to right click in order to cancel out of that, and we're back to where we started. So before we continue, we may want to set down some ground rules. For example, more than likely, whenever I cut everything with circle, I set it to 32. So that means that all around this mesh, it's been hit with 32 round circles. This area was built using a beveled box, so it's different. But if we look at this, we just are pondering how we want to go about cleaning this up. But there's some that I may want to try to lessen. For example, with this area, we're going to bring back this cutter, and under the opt-ins for HardOps, under the star, if you change your scroll type to be additive, that means that whenever you enable the visibility of a cutter, that, you know, I'm using Hops tool to reveal another cutter, using Hops tool to reveal another cutter and another. But also now if I go inside of Everscroll and I begin scrolling through my cutters, we see that the cutters that were already revealed aren't being hidden. So to show it in action, I've now hidden all the cutters by changing my collection back to the main one. Let's also turn on keystrokes. Sorry about that. And we'll just press Q and ever scroll. And we bring back our first shape. Left click, finish the operation, go back and ever scroll again. And we don't even have to finish the operation and go into it over and over. We could stay in the operation, press A, roll the wheel, press A, and just keep on. In fact, I'm going to roll the wheel back until we get back this shape as well, because I feel that making some modifications of it will lessen the stress that's being created around the mesh. And what I mean by that is, let's press Alt W, jump over to Boxcutter. I'm going to also increment this file by 1, so that way it is just a different file than the initial one. And let's just switch over to Box, and let's also jump over to Knife. And we are knifing on this big bowl shape that we revealed, and by putting a line down the middle, we're able to just, you know, take charge and just force a particular flow. Instead of having it flow off to the side any way that it wants to, we basically forced an edge flow. So we still have our cutter collection visible, so we still need this particular cutter, because I also want to place a cut there, which will give us a control loop happening in this area. And we probably want to do one more. I'll look at it kind of at this counter angle, and by performing that cut, we are now good to go. In fact, let's reveal this shape, and I'm going to select this loop and just bring it down a little bit, because, you know, I even care about the little box cuts and how their outcomes go. But we now see that, you know, despite us having to solve a lot, we're at least on a good track. And we didn't even do what we set out to do with revealing all these cutters. So let's go and ever scroll and do it again. You know, if it was just me, I would just roll through first cutter, second cutter, third cutter, just pressing A, and now I have all the cutters revealed. And I didn't rehearse this beforehand, so I'm going to save the file, and we're going to press Alt X, press D, jump over to bisect, and first I'm going to click on Y, and then while holding shift I'm going to click on -Y, and then to end it I will click on one of the X handles. So basically we've consolidated all of those circles to planes, because we didn't cut it non-destructively, we made all these planes. So I'm going to press Q, go under add modifier, and we're just going to bring up screw X, maybe press C. Looking at this other side, I see that pressing F to flip was a good option. And let's go back into screw again, and we can press tab to pause it. And I'm going to change my segment count to something like 12, because that's really the whole purpose of doing this, is to take a circle that we've already set in stone and just bring it down to something a little bit more reasonable. But let's press Alt V, enable face orientation, and we see that one of these did not work out, and it's this one. So let's go back under screw. Let's just press F to flip it. And if we look at our face orientation, we are good to go. So we're just going to keep on doing this. And the reason that we're doing this is because it'll make our work of converting this to a subdivision object a little bit simpler. So I have this object selected. I was looking at the modifiers. The modifier list just seemed a little long for having a cylinder selected, so I'm glad I double checked that. And I'm just shift clicking on Y, and then finally just not shift clicking on X. And then from here we can just screw it, press X, maybe F, and pressing 1, 2, 3 at the top will change the type of screw operation that you're performing, with 3 being converting it to extrude, but 1 and 2 will jump from 12 to 36, and really we're just trying to get to 12. So if we press Alt V, look at our face orientation, we just want to make sure that our normals are correct, and we just want to do this to all the circles that we just don't want to fight with and add a ton of loops for. I mean, we could still solve up to 36 if we wanted to, but hey, if you don't have to, then you don't got to. So let's shift click, and then click, and press Q, go under screw, X. And I'm thinking that that's the right one, and we'll press 1 to change it to 12, but maybe let's take it up to 24. This area is somewhat prominent, so taking it up to 24 should do it for us, and we're now looking at something. However, let's go back into it, because just judging, I don't know if I like Everscroll more or HOPScutter for revealing my cutters, but they're both some winners. Let's take it down to 12 and just look at those, and I think we actually are looking at something a little bit more appropriate for our surface. And these spines happening in the center, don't even worry about them. When it comes to topo solving, we'll solve it lickety split. So now that we look at this, we see that a little 32 rounds of howdy doody on such a gigantic circle, probably appropriate. But when it comes to this area, is it the best option? Do we want to solve this? Do we want to extend this out? I'm looking at these thinking 3, 3, 3, 3, a little math, 3, 6, 9, 12, 36, going to be extending off. So you know what, we'll let these live. But just doing a little quick thinking in my head, just trying to think about the future and what we're going to be opening up. So we'll convert those on our own time, we'll convert that on our own time. And looking at this, we're just thinking about how this is going to solve, and we could reveal its cutter as well. And jumping into bevel, let's lower the segments down to, let's leave them where they are. We want it to perfectly conform the piece that it was, but just looking at it, I know that we could reduce it just a little bit, but being a little too lenient on the geometry. Let's also enable statistics for the 3D view, so that way we can see exactly what we're up to. And we save our file looking a little busted, and really we're just setting ourselves up for the work to come. So what am I going to do? I'm going to just smart apply, because trying to keep mods live at this point is going to get weird. I'll press Alt X, and let's jump to bisect and modifier in the D menu of mirror, and we will just mirror it without holding shift to just do it and be done. And whenever it comes to using screw the way that we did, you're always going to have some kind of residue happening, and selecting is going to be hard or weird, but we got this. Just a little cleanup, just a byproduct of having screw in the way that we use it. You know, I've done a lot of videos talking about screws, so if you want more explanation on it, there are videos where I go into depth on it, but really it's not the most important thing. Just know that if you have extra little geometry sticking out, you probably want to apply it or clean it up. So let's press P. We separate by loose parts, and so this is our first piece. Let's get in and begin cleaning it up. So I believe someone was telling me that Mesh Machine has a select that's pretty nice. Let's use F9. All right, maybe I'm not using it right. Shouldn't be trying to use these things unrehearsed. Sorry, Machine. Not trying to make you look bad. Sure, I'm just using it wrong. So let's just mark this as sharp. I was about to just bevel it, but instead let's mark it with a seam as well. So we just go in, we mark it with a seam. This means that I can now, all right, let's also mark this with a seam just by use it mark. And this means that we can now press I to inset and basically protect this side with a nice even inset instead of what we're about to give it, which was a little bit more brutal of an inset. We could also select this loop, shift click mark, press B, and you know, maybe we'll be able to make it through this without soling. So we see that because of what we've been doing, the loops and their markings have been offset, but that's really not the most important thing right now. We'll select these two loops and we'll just shift click mark and just bring that out, spacebar to apply. And this area is where things will begin to get a little sticky. So maybe I can press J and just run a loop directly across. And it looks like it let me in this case. Let's select this point and this point, press J, and it looks like we were able to hit it with a bolt of lightning, allowing us to replace these kind of ugly skews. You know, we don't need these bad looking skews. So now that it's not skewed, that means we can select it, press I, and we're getting something a little bit more acceptable. So when it comes to subdivision conversion, you know, also I always use this kind of 3 loop per sharp edge sort of protection system. There are alternatives. Sometimes you can use 2, which I've been actually experimenting with 2. I should do it in this case. And also we could work this shape radially and put it together radially. But instead, we are just getting in here, having some fun with the Blender. You know, 3.0 for the most part has been stable on my side. However, we are, of course, always working on keeping things maintained. Let's shift click mark, press B, and you know, that bevel looks a little wonky with how it's traversing the surface. Let's press Control B, press P, and you know, that's kind of weird, but not the end of the world. We'll just sully our bevel. Challenge lost. You know, how far am I in this video? 13 minutes in, and we lost that challenge. Doesn't matter. But what we are going to do is give each of these loops 2 loops instead of 3 loops, because I just feel like 3 loops is a little heavy, and I've been messing with 2, and you know, it gives it a slightly different look, a kind of softer look, but I'm into it. Also, sometimes I find myself working on the other half of things, and you know, I have to hit myself in the head and remind myself that we don't need to do that. So I don't know where my origin is, but I'm gonna assume that my origin's in the right place. And I see this moving, and I'm just ignoring that. What I'm actually looking at is the perimeter of the circle. I just want to make sure that that's not going to change. Otherwise, it would be regrettable. And the same thing that we did over there, we must also do here. You know, every time I use these tools, I just get hit by ideas upon ideas of past they can go. Sometimes I also wonder why. But modeling could always get easier and easier till it's atomized. So something like that I think is a little bit more chill on this. And I'm also gonna take myself up on the offer to, you know, Shift D, merge at center, extrude this piece out, separate it by a loose part. We can just mirror this across itself so we get something like this, and then we can perform a radial array of 3. Press A to get rid of any adjustment when we move the mouse. We don't really need that in this case. And we just rotate this until it is precisely where it needs to be. And this is so we can get, you know, quote unquote, a perfect 360 radial cutout of this mesh. You know, sometimes I just don't feel like doing all that extra work. In fact, I can select this point, press J, I can select this point, press J, and I can just keep doing that. But I know that my next 50 moves are those moves, and F that, guys. Shift click mark, press J. And you know, the beauty of select tool, at least the beauty to me, is its magic is in its flexibility and its reuse, because now I'm done. You know, otherwise I would still be talking about the tyranny of having to do all that selection. Let's mirror it to the other side, so that's done, and we have these loops flowing. So the conversion process is pretty much complete. We do want to also continue this to the other side. With 3.0, the knife is different, so, you know, excuse me for pressing these hotkeys just out of order, but you should definitely read the help that's at the bottom for the new knife, because I don't get why so much of it had to change, but oh my god, it is just crazy what's going on with knife now. I mean, it works, it's still great, but just that one thing. Let's V-rip it, mirror it over to the other side, and we have this perfect piece. And we are going to radial array it. I don't know why it's trying to adjust it so heavily, but we really don't need that in our lives right now. And so this loop is fake and must go because it's compromising the fidelity of our circle. So I'd love to keep it live and just be messing around live, you know, just having a good old party, but we can't. We got to apply it and then clear it out and get the mesh actually looking correct, or else the circle Nazis will get me. Why am I adding these loops? Don't even know. They're interior faces. You know, these loops are so not needed. Got to stop. It's more like a spidey sense. Not even thinking, just working. I do want to turn on Verti Mergey, you know, because we are partying. We might as well get that party started. Remirror. And so far so good. We'll save. Apply, apply, apply. Let's try that again. Actually, let's select the mesh and just smart apply. I don't know why the mesh just disappeared, but you know, always some sort of mystery needing to be solved. Let's go back to when this was all live. And we see that we have these extroverts that aren't needed. You know, we could just dissolve them, but there is an option in the Q menu under ST3 Mesh Tools called Clean Borders. I could have sworn that Clean Borders was actually the one that would have cleaned these up. No biggie. Let's mirror this over to the other side. Alright, I originally paused because I was going to deal with some bug reporting, but meh. I'll stop. People hate hearing from me. Let's select everything and make sure we're in vert mode, merge by distance. We got rid of 114 verts, which means that everything's merged together. We should have put a weld on it, but now after dissolving that, it's now good to go. So whenever we begin adding subdivision, we can remove auto smooth. And if we turn off wireframe, this is basically what we've converted this into. So the conversion process doesn't always have to be, blood and sweat and agony. Sometimes it can be relatively straightforward. However, the real sander of sanity is the working and reworking, and instead of beveling it with 3, we'll just bevel it with 2. And we'll slide this up, dissolve, slide this in, dissolve. And we don't want any sharp markings at this time. But congratulations, that piece has now been converted. So subdivision conversion is just a thing. It's like Sudoku. I tried to express that over all the videos I did about it. Because the circle count of all of these are pretty much the same, that activates something I call serendipity, which means we can press Control T, Alt J, and convert everything to a quad, and we're done. So really brief part of the process. Let's just bevel it. We'll roll the wheel once, do the same thing here. Let's grab these, Control B, and do the same here. And we get something like that. And fastest conversion ever. But that's because there are pieces that are going to take some time, like this piece. What are we going to do with that? We should have redirected that loop. What are we going to do about that? So many problems. Might as well give up. Just kidding. But in fact, we could solve it in the amount of time that I could convince you to not give up on 3D. But let's just get in here and just begin solving. We'll place the loop in the middle, remove it. And I'm going to select everything and just press I and B. I get some comments every now and then that ask why I don't use I more, and I totally am all about I. I'm an I guy. It's just sometimes I don't recognize its opportunity in front of my face whenever it presents itself, but the opportunity to use I is always there, just like you saw me use it just now. So for this part, it's going to begin to get a little tricky. And that's because we want to, just prevent ourselves from adding circumnavigational loops to this that aren't needed, and really just keep things focused on, what is needed. Is this loop even needed? We'll press I to inset, and then we'll just grab this, bevel, maybe something like that, allowing us to use knife, right click to cancel that mistake, right click. I do like right clicking, so while I talk about knife being quote unquote messed up, don't publish that in any papers or anything, but there are some things about knife that's very nice. So if anyone ever counter argued with, well, it's needed for knife to move forward, I'd understand. We're gonna deselect these points so that way when we verti merge, we get something like that. And this allows us to basically start working in a reinforcement to this area. Right click to cancel. You know, it's almost one-handed. What is going on with knife? I'm just looking at these options here. One of them I press. Shift was the one. All right, and control. What a strange options, I'm telling you. The 3.0 knife just completely messes with the muscle memory I've had for a knife for so long, but I'm not here to complain about knives, sorry. I gotta stop. Select these 2 points, press J, and it's gonna get a little tight around this area. In fact, solving it is, yeah, I just realized that this is a very tight solve that we're gonna be trying to work in here. But solving it will make us stronger. So let's just get in there, select some points, J, start networking. In this case, I'm not even sure if my next move is J, or else I would just be inside of merge mode of select tool. But looks like every time I think I'm done, I'm back in, pressing J again. Let's bring these two over and just begin consolidating some areas. And I want to have a loop going along the side, which I don't think is the smartest idea. You know, let's just write it in there like a bad ending. The bad ending is this area, not the best ending. Total sequel bait. We're going to be back again. Solving loops 2. This time it's personal. This time it's all quad. You know, no women, no triangles. Those are the rules of being a geometric hitman. So I'm going to grab this and bring it back. And this shape is such a odd one. I feel like that should probably be straighter, but you know what? We're converting to subdivision because, you know, I was just bored. And also I was like, you know, I feel like sending this through a few other applications. So let's have some fun with it. Select 2 points, press J. Did not go the way I wanted. So we'll use knife. Knife will really force a connection, and we see that, you know, adding additional geometry to the form is not going to help us here. We got to have some strict rules in place if we are to survive this. And I will just get rid of one of those loops because it doesn't matter how perfect it is. You know, especially compared to the size that this particular piece is. Like, you want to talk about a complex piece to convert to subdivision. It's one of these babies. You know, so whenever it comes to topo study, it isn't even a so much a event for me personally. I mean, it is in terms of video content, but in its actual use in my life, you know, definitely is something that comes up daily as I'm working with shapes. Sometimes it's like, you know what, I want to convert this shape to something better, you know, but a lot of the time I am like, you know, doesn't matter, unless I'm trying to put my UVs up in a museum. or my topology. You know, if you want to see my topology at the Smiths, just kidding. Let's just keep on sliding. You know, if anything, Beeple's topology would be up in a museum before mine would. You know, and he would just be showing like probably Turbo Squid's topology or something. Yeah, look at this. This is the 3D topology of Beeple. Also an NFT. So something like that. You know, we see how loops will just change your solution as you're working. For this, we are going to hit it with one of those numbers. Just web it out. But before that, we are going to need to bring this one out. And we will need to bring this one out as well. Maybe it's something like that. So if I really cared, I could press QOP, which would turn on polygon debug, and then I could see which faces are truly Ngons and which ones are not, and also possibly have Blender crash so hard that even the loader crashes. So it appears that at 31:23 I have to make an edit to the video. So here we are. Didn't lose a whole lot of progress. In fact, I am going to learn nothing and go back into polygon debug because I never learn. So just like that, we are solving this area. Maybe it crashed because of how bad my topology was. Just kidding. Can't be that. And really looking at this, because I have a second opportunity, we are going to try using an inset on it. And before looking at it with polygon debug, which I feel I see a few edits needing to happen with it, we are going to change up our geometric strategy just a little bit, maybe break a few rolls. Not the best idea, but let's just try it. And you know, this isn't the worst what the inset gave me here. So we can actually work this in. And maybe even work an edge up along the side of this. But, you know, it's going to definitely be a tight solution in the end. So, you know, expect to revisit this area. Now, what actually inspired me to do this video is I was sitting at the computer and listening to some synth music, and you know, some of these tracks that came on were just so fire. I was just sitting there working and jamming. I was like, man, that's the mood right there. That's the aesthetic. I don't even know who the name of the person was that I was listening to that got me to hit record. But yeah, sometimes music will move me to action. And we're just in here, just joining and just consolidating loops. Not a bad way to spend a Monday. Could be worse. Could be playing pipes. As a plumber, I felt the need to probably emphasize that. Or climbing a ladder with shingles. You know, probably the scariest job I could think of personally. You know, I've never even climbed on the roof of a house. You know, I'm a tall guy, but I don't mess with heights. And we could also bring in the auditor sub D and have it on our mesh so that way we can see what we're truly getting with this. But instead, I am going to just keep working. And, you know, when it comes to me personally, you know, if you're unfamiliar with me, I care about geometry. However, I don't care so much about, you know, perfect flows of quads and, you know, the complete elimination of triangles. Sometimes I will let a triangle live just because of the curiosity of what it offers, because, you know, triangles are so interesting, but we're trained so fast to kill them that we never get to explore their abilities as terminators. So let us just slide this over. And some of this geometry I feel could probably be better, but we are going to just keep on moving. Snap down the vertex. Grab these two. And what I want to do is actually use the knife, force a connection, SY0, assuming that that is all flat. And now we at least have an area to play in. We'll switch over to J and, you know, speeding up a little bit because I'm just working. You know, eventually I want to just work casually. Yeah, that's my dream, just to get everyone to the level where I can work casually in videos. And I'll have a comment asking me for what do you do here every 5 minutes in the video. I mean, every time I see it, I'm thinking, man, another system should be made to notify people of what's up, doc. I feel video games have mastered the conveyance of that information. They're like, headshot, you have shot a head. You know, sometimes I play games, I just imagine they're sleepy pills. So I'm like, this player has been given a sleepy pill to their face, and now they are sleeping, possibly eternally. So we will finish this in just a moment. However, let me step away from the canvas for one moment. Alright, I'm back. So I left to go watch a show, and, you know, final episode, guy dies. It's like, dang. Didn't expect that. You know, the whole time I was watching, I was like, I hope they do a season 4. I guess they are not doing another season if the guy has passed away. So, yeah, that's how it happens. Sometimes you're living in a TV show, and next thing you know, you're dead. You know, being summoned on a Ouija board. Shout out if you're watching this video from beyond the grave, or, you know, through a Ouija board. You know, YouTube's now available on more platforms than ever. You can probably pick it up on a Ouija board. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just, you know, this is the end gun in front of my face. But, you know, guarantee you we're about to survive subdivision with this. And precisely the reason I wanted to do this is because I was just like, man, no one sane would want to convert that. In fact, you know, deep regret. But also, you know, we're just having some fun. Playing with a little bit of hops, you know, I ain't seen you guys for a moment. And we'll just leave it at that. Let's Alt-V, look at the wireframe. Got a little sticky there for a moment, but we managed to survive and make our way. So now let us bring in our auditor. So I'm just pressing, you know, Control 1, 2, 3, jump through levels, just to see how subdivision's treating us. And we see that You know, most areas are looking all right. I feel like there's a bit of a dimple happening in here, but I could be hallucinating, but I know I'm not. We also probably want to turn off shadows just because, and we never want to look at subdivision in edit mode. That's just icky. So geometry in here is looking kind of busted, in all honesty, so I'd love to get to the bottom of that. We're just removing some doubles. Let's just reconnect that, and that appeared to have been the issue. So I'm going to place that loop there, and then slide that down and add another loop. All right, and back to work. So far so good, except for this area. So my strategy is to just further our infection to the nearest planar convergence point, which is this area and this area. I think would do the least amount of harm, giving us something like that as a solution. But you know, we did bring in some like curiosities with the surface that kind of results in something a little planar happening here that's just not the most visually pleasing. I mean, it's real subtle, but you know, a subdivision for you. But subdivision is so weak as a mini boss, you know, like you can really game it. I mean, the topology I'm giving it isn't like the most beautiful. It's actually quite ugly, but you know, we are making it through this. And you know, the hardest part is this thing right here. In fact, if we hide it, we see that it's actually all that's left. And we also see that there is some, I know I saw it. What is this? We'll get rid of that. All right, so always follow your dreams. Just kidding. I always say that in videos. You know, that's from Zach in Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core on the PlayStation Portable. But let's just start working an area. I don't even want to solve that. And the thing is that like if we wanted to convert this shape to its next level, which is basically giving it a bevel, we couldn't because there's like all these like mesh convergences. So you know, sometimes I get comments of people being like, yo, why can't Boxcutter cut like curvy objects? And you know, the answer is like so complex that I don't even bother anymore. However, I do want to do like a video for linking people that just kind of explains that, you know, curvature is a tricky topic. And you know, once you start introducing different surface angles, it's just a completely different approach and thought process. And you know, Python is only so fast. I'm always being told that, you know, hey, if we do this, we'll stress the limits of the speeds of Python. In fact, there's like arguments being had internally of using alternative libraries in order to expand our scope and speed and possibilities. But you know, these things are all theoretical, and really our goal is to stick with the things that we've been given. So you know, I feel that it can be done just with Python. There's no need for us to get all crazy immediately. If anything, we need to experiment with it separately than flagship products. But I'm gonna just double up this loop, which, you know, anytime you see me getting in and adding in these supports on already established topology, you always notice I kind of use this kind of offset triangle solution, which, you know, the more I use it, the more solutions I find it actually working out quite nice in. The bad news about this is that we have to circumnavigate all of this. So you know, it's going to be a battle on a battle on a battle on a battle, but you know, it doesn't really matter because, you know, if you have something better to do, then go ahead and wrap this up. However, let's just slide some stuff around. And maybe offset it to the nearest flatty just to protect the perimeter. And we're just going to use 2 loops instead of the usual 3 just to simplify it, because I mean these areas don't really matter that much, but you know, as I mess with this, I'm actually sure that there's a setting in Blender that just makes it where I can just grab geometry and slide it, since that's probably most likely what I'm about to do with whatever geometry I grab. I mean, I know we can go into the multi-tool and we could kind of go into a slide mode where we're just grabbing things and sliding it, but also like seeing that these things are inherently solved on a Blender level. All right, so let's jump down here and have a little chat. So negotiation complete. Now it's just a matter of us, you know, just drawing this mesh's destiny. And you see also that a lot of the time I will just opt for just the vanilla option because it's just great. I mean, especially if I'm about to use it one time. For example, if I'm about to J and then my next movement is a slide, you know, I probably might use the actual Blender version. Not saying that the versions that we made are improvements upon them. You know, all they are just alternatives. You know, I'm a big believer in the alternatives that can exist of a version. Maybe a little less so now since Blender 3.0 was a bit of a shot in the chest, but we'll survive. But over future updates, we'll definitely be kind of getting things to a stable point and trying to reduce some of the things that are having to be maintained, so we're maintaining as much as is needed and not more than could actually be possible. You know, Blender 3.0 broke a lot of things, so it did make me realize that a little bit of cleanup is necessary, especially because, you know, at the time that 987 was being first made, you know, we were dealing with a lot of variants because we wanted to test, you know, what possibilities worked best. And now it's pretty well established that we grabbed the best things of all of our various versions and have consolidated them into the vanilla defaults that you experience when you first enable the tool. And there's not really much reason to go back to a previous version, because if the V2 fails, that's just real bad. But here you can see I'm doing a sequential J, or, you know, that's what I think in my head when I'm doing this. I'm thinking, well, I'm about to J for the next so-and-so maneuver. So this is when, you know, you want to be able to just quickly repeat such things. So, you know, in the back of my mind, I ponder what it'd be like if Blender inherently was able to solve such a thing, if they were able to just have these macro moments that are able to be repeated. I mean, thinking back on it, macros was one of the things that first got me into dealing with the old Python. But what are we snapping to? And it's shift and snap that, I mean, yeah, it's shift to make it stop doing that, that makes it just feel so odd. I mean, getting rid of that could be both a blessing and a curse. But because this mesh is, you know, relatively simple, even though it's a subdivision level 3 on a cube, well, subdivision level 4 on a cube, there's not really a ton of geometry here. We're just fighting against the currents. You know, in some of the topo study videos, I've had people comment saying, you know, if you would have used this primitive, it would have been so much easier. But there's also a reason that we're fighting with the topology, and that's just to like illustrate the power of slide and maintaining the form even in these kind of free situations, because you would think I would have to do a lot more shrink wrapping. And, you know, we just might, if I do any sort of G movements, you know, the geometry will basically go free, you know, free of gravity, and no longer stick to these planes that have been established by the forms that this was built with. So to me, it's most important that we add geometry on the surface, and we slide the surface, and we maneuver and reposition the surface. Let's look at our handiwork. In the front, it looks like nothing, and we actually started in the back and basically established a loop along our sides. If we put subdivision on it, it'll look as if we did nothing at all. So it's best that we, you know, don't take any victory laps. So let's just knife across, shift. I don't know why I have to keep pressing shift or tapping shift, but whenever you're stuck, unable to get to these midpoints, that's something to remember with this new knife. Even though, you know, why? I don't even see why. So we just something like that. And I don't know, maybe it's even a bug in Blender that it jumps to that state by default every time I use the knife, because I'm definitely turning it off every time and then finishing the tool, which, you know, by our logic, we would assume that that's when you would want it to be canceled on your next start state, you know, if we were talking like in Boxcutter terms, but that's a differential there. So we are just gonna knife our way around. You know, slightly busted, but we are almost to the destination. And, you know, at the end we could even goof off with a little bit of quad remesher, but you know, people in the comments get so nutty about it, so I'm not trying to instigate anything. You know, I'm always gonna opt for something a little more handmade, you know, that Italian grandmother love that only a mesh can be given by family, you know, Vin Diesel style. So family. So we're just getting in here, slide in, looking at all these doubles, you know, like this process also is something that you should do as a user if you are getting acquainted with booleans, because it's important to understand like the type of results that you're creating on the fly, because people think, oh, I didn't apply it, you know, so it's not anything to have to think about. But I mean, you know, if you've seen some of the things I've had to clean up after a boolean, then, you know, the rules about meshes being manifold, you don't even have to be the one to break it. The boolean will break it for you. So that is something that, yeah, I feel every user should probably be aware of, but I can understand certainly, you know, just not running into that, because the only way that it reflects is via shading issues or a hole suddenly appearing. But, you know, and these are things you can't teach, because the situations that create them are rather niche. You gotta do it over and over and over, and then eventually you run into a situation that will recreate a certain bug. But let's continue on. And as always, first press shift and stop messing up my knife. Now, I think I only today am realizing that it's shift to turn off snapping from getting all wacky on you. But, you know, just knife. What did you guys do to my boy knife, man? Like, that's the Blender gamble. Like, you know, sometimes it'll just get so good that the only thing they could do is make it less good. It's like, oh, Blender guarantee. So, you know, we're just running around following trims, making trims, just creating these shapes. G, G, E, F to flip. Maybe about there. Will do. And let's at least finish up this area so we can get to the subdivision preview part, and then it's a little more apparent what's happening. Alright, just looking at this and thinking about it, and you know, there's a lot happening in this circle, and if we mess it up, it will not look as circular as we'd like. So it's a lot to think about at the same time, just big ponderings. But you know, we're just gonna go for it. Do we want to sacrifice this whole area? I mean, just to be a little geometrically frugal? The answer is no. No, the answer is no. So maybe something like that. 2 loops, no loop of protection there. That's a little bad, but let us grab this, press I, and then E, and let's delete these faces. And our selection has 14, which is an even number. That tells me that we can grid fill. If you don't have an even number in your selection, you're not going to be able to grid fill. That's pretty much grid fill for you. And you know, you always see me use a grid fill on circle, but grid fill is also great just on planar stuff. I don't think it's talked about enough. All right, and we have formed this connection. I mean, when I was looking at this and judging its pain factor, I saw a shape that was just agonizing. I mean, look at this thing. Who would want to convert this? But seriously, I have seen my share of conversion tasks that have just been nightmares. So let us press I, we'll press B, and let us jump here. Let's press I, and we're already in B, so we don't need to talk about B again, but B will toggle boundary. So let's just grab these, dissolve, slide, slide, slide. Gotta try to shorten it as much as possible. I mean, I just want to grab every other loop, maybe every other loop, but even if we did that, I don't think it'd be enough. You know, subdivision is so lenient. You know, not in most ways. You know, I always talk about these things like they're people, these modifiers, but you know, subdivision, its role is topologically protect what matters if it matters to you. Otherwise, you know, the rules of your flow, I mean, I feel like I'm describing something inappropriate, but you know, there's a flow. There's a flow to your geometry, and for me, I've been experimenting so long with, you know, how little do I have to do? I mean, not saying I'm lazy and I'm just trying to cheat my way through, but I mean, you know, topology, you could obsess with its perfection, but for me, I really am curious in just how much perfection it requires. Because I'm always surprised. Let's actually do one, of course, and then we can form this connection, which is just a lot simpler because there's less loops involved. But, and you know, that's all regrettable. I think I remember choosing specifically not to do that, but we will catch it on the flip side. You know, subdivision's already going to shrink the mesh a little bit, so we will already be dealing with our fair share of fun. And a few loops to connect them up, and we have our flow. Not the greatest flow, but we are ready to move along. And we're just kind of jumping around everywhere, just kind of bouncing. In fact, this area looked like it would be like a pain, you know. So first things first, let's do some prep work. This stuff's always hard to do later on, so you know, doing all those topo studies has shown me a few lessons. Let's press C. I feel like something could be made that drops loops and then gets rid of a loop, but I'm telling you, I gotta stop thinking about it. So let us grab this, bevel it. I am going to deem this loop as extra and get rid of it. We're just going to try 2 loops today. I know, strange idea, but it'll be fine. So little I, just to space these things out. Grab these 2. Combine. J, and a little bit of extra loop reduction probably could help this situation out, but we're fine. This area will need to be expanded upon. One, two, three, four. I don't even need poly display. Like, I feel it's a little overbearing at this moment, so it might be something checked into. Actually, let's look at it right now. So What I'm saying is that poly display is just a little overbearing, but if we go under our preferences for color and we look at HUD display, just making sure. And of course, it's not going to be under dots display. If there were options for this, they would be here. But it's not. So that means we need to add some pref options for the amount of color that's being shown here. So for now, I will just turn that off and we'll just continue working in a nice chill state. So connecting the dots. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. These two will need to merge. I don't even know if that one should exist, but you know, we'll leave it for now just so we can continue working our way around. But you know, despite how it looks and despite the fact that we're not even in subdivision yet, we are making some progress. And I mean, we're lucky that it's mirrored at least on the X. Normally I'd give myself an X and a Y, but those sort of things aren't being promoted as design choices, more to be efficient with time, not saying you should use that as part of your own discipline. Weighing so heavy on symmetry is gonna limit your design a bit, so don't do it. We will grab all of this and slide it up. Slide this over. These two can meet. And let's begin finalizing this area, which I think is going to be enough for us to begin to analyze this in subdivision and also outside of it. It's just that we did it before, the mesh would just look so terrible, probably have such a differential going in and out of edit mode, which is something I love doing for reasons I can't explain. But I just go in and out of edit mode, just, you know, look at the mesh, edit the mesh smidgen. I wish that you could add dots like you do with loop cut, but you were also able to move them, like slide them around on the edge. I mean, if you're a Blender dev listening, yeah, might as well, guys. I mean, what else is it gonna do? So we're just gonna grab all of this and let's do this thing right. We'll press C so they clamp up against each other and stop moving. And then once we dissolve one edge, it's fine. But you know, I just want to make sure there's not any doubles happening. J, J, and J. Having to press that was a mistake. I should not have done that. You know, sometimes when I see that the next 5 moves are the same move, that's when you probably want to use a multi-tool. So we'll press I, and we already have B activated, so it's protected against the boundary, but we are going to need to get rid of these little bites inward because they're icky. And you know, probably the easiest way for us to do that is like so, which we'll create an unsolved mystery here. We'll just fill that in, and so far so good. So I'm about to do the same move 5 times in a row, like a N64 wrestling game, and we'll just jump into slide mode, and we also have slide as part of join, but it's not the same type of slide. You're not going to slide and activate your boy Verdi Mergy. And looking at this, just wondering if there should be an additional protection path down the middle. The answer is no. So clicking and then right clicking, I like the way it used to be, but I'm probably just an old man yelling at a cloud. So I apologize. I'm trying to stop. These clouds aren't listening. They just keep ganging up, flying by. And I accidentally activated cut through. So rather than just undoing and recutting, forget about it. And you think I'm gonna have all of this converging at the center? No. We can always do a little bit of in-loop consolidation when the opportunity arises. So something like this. And we're just making sure that we're not letting our loops run away from us, because if we start circumnavigating the form, it's going to start creasing things and making them hard. And nobody wants that. So we're just working our way around. Like, I'm debating on turning the music on, you know, just so y'all can get in the same mindset as me. You know, I don't want you guys to get DMCA'd. Have YouTube telling me this video can't be played in certain countries, but yeah, I'll activate a little bit of it. So this area's integration is going to be tough. You know, I almost just want to annihilate that, and we just see how this fares on its own. You know, subdivision is so cruel though. So really we could actually get rid of that. But really, you know, I look at this stuff and you shouldn't even fear it, because we could always go for a solution like that. And, you know, not the best. Pretty much I would rate that an icky out of 10. You know, definitely icky and potentially sticky. But let's just continue on. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we grab this and connect it here, we can end this. But that's just too harsh of a turn. So we want to try something a little more kind, but also there's not a lot of room for us to experiment. Like something like that results in a quad, a tri, and a quad, which, you know, just to survive this is going to be tight. But, you know, since we're right next to the circle itself, there's not a lot of room for us to get experimental, and potentially making that mistake would come back to haunt us. I'll allow it. Connection, and yeah, I just feel like there's so many loops over here. But let's just make it work. So something like that. I mean, a triangle on a flatty isn't going to be the end of the world, is how I look at things. I don't know if I'll ever get people to see things the way I see them, but that's just me. Triangle on a flatty is worst things going on in the world right now. So let's control B. And I wish we could just add 2 loops without having to do it this way, but it'll lose its profile. And once I add a subdivision, things start getting a little slow, but you know, we see that this thing is going to hold very nicely. So we don't want to get in there too early with that. You know, subdivisions like putting some lead boots on our blender. Maybe something like that. And you might look at this topology and think, wow, he hasn't changed anything at all. Just kidding, that's very insulting, sir. Please don't say that. Oh my god, come on, knife. We'll just press K and making sure I didn't cut through the mesh by accident, and we'll be back to clean that up later. I forget that we are still in this valley solving these mysteries. And if we would have put a loop through this to protect this, we wouldn't have this stress happening in this area. And as a result of that stress, we get that stress, you know. So it's like, how do we solve this problem? I am going to just click on dice and press VV and do one of these and just dissolve that, and we're back to business. So where there's a will, there's a way. I love, you know, dice line. That thing's just fantastic. You know, we can just keep one loop protecting each side, and let's reveal the whole mesh just so we see what we have going on over here. In fact, I'm going to select just this whole planar area. We'll press I, and because Blender hasn't crashed, we haven't lost our settings for inset. Not saying Blender will crash, or it's expected to, but you know, if you're not crashing Blender, you might not be using it hard enough or wrong enough. I think that's the thing with Blender, you gotta misuse it. So maybe something like that, and I don't even know which path is the most effective, so we'll leave that open-ended and double back for it. And let's try knifing across. It's like on subsequent uses it gets weird. I mean, I am using the actual official stable release of Blender 3.0 as well. I mean, there's also Blender 3.1, which just realized brings me back to Blender, brings me back to Windows 3.1. Never made that connection till now. And forming our connections. You know, we've got a big bird's eye view over the whole shebang. And luckily, they let that loop terminate short, because I feel like there is a flow opportunity here for us to generate some interesting geometry here to solve this area while also solving that area. So these are just the things I'm thinking about while I'm working. So we got that connection made, and any other loops we add will begin to make the other parts more strict. But if we look at this, we see that, you know, we've solved some of the most brutal areas of this, and we're progressing with this mesh nicely. So all right. Let's slap a subdivision on it, just see what it looks like. And this is beauty. Just taking it all in. You know, we see that the areas that we actually did touch properly are holding up very nicely. But the areas that we just lacked on, you know, here's the areas that we worked, we reinforced it. That's what it's looking like. However, the areas that we just tried to just do nothing on are just nah. So let's get rid of subdivision once again, and we get back to work once again. One loop, two loop, and I'm just trying random combinations of inset, knowing that I'm going to be grabbing areas and ending them. Still debating on the fashion in which I end them, but I'm thinking something like that. In fact, I might have been insetting a little too hard here, but we'll deal with that bridge when we come to it. Let's just start cleaning some areas up, and it should just make sense as we go. So a little knife here, all the way to here. Let's just form a connection here, which should make this look a little less weird. You know, inset really got a little weird, didn't it? You know, really compromised some areas a bit, which is never the goal. So I don't even know how to explain it, but we will just work through it, won't we? And form connections. I mean, as the geometry gets tighter and tighter with solutions, it becomes a lot more understandable. For example, I want one loop here to connect all of this. So that means that's a quad ending that whole thing. You know, we won't talk about it anymore. And so over here, some decisions will probably have to be made. I mean, we could start consolidating things like so, but we probably do need a quad coming around like so, so that we were able to grab that. And start forming connection, just swinging in that direction. I just, envision this like Tarzan, but with geometry. So this loop is probably crucial, which is why it's sitting there and has remained preserved this whole time. So let's S0, and that merges it too. I don't think I ever S0 things, because S0 is 2 keys versus merge and click, but and after forming a quick connection, 1, 2, 3, all right. Alright, and something like that will suffice for this moment. However, some of these areas are so loosely held together that I just ponder how subdivision will handle them. But, we are going to be probably using J a couple of times in a row, just like so, just to build the connections that we see. And for the areas left blank, we will need something a little more streamlined for what we're going for. So just taking a look at our geometry, and I'm going to take a moment to lower my desk and sit down. I've actually been standing up this whole time. And let us continue working. So much geometry to deal with, I underestimated the battle ahead of me with this. But I'm telling you, the cuts were so easy to make. I cut it in seconds. It's like, ooh, these cuts look good. And now we're dealing with the repercussions of those cuts. What does it mean to make those cuts? With every wedge, you must go in and solve that wedge. And you could be lazy about it. Like, what we see happening here with this and this, if we leave that could be lazy. I mean, we could also do a third one here, which is like basically a corner solve, but believe me, we'll sleep better with something like this instead of having these odd terminations. Don't tell anybody that I have a loop doing double duty, double reinforcement duty. It's reinforcing a door that's irrelated to its current facility, but too many loops were impacted by that. So we'll just subdivide an edge to bring it quietly in. And we'll bring that over. Connection and connection. And just off the top of my head, this is probably the best solution I can think of at this moment. But once we slap it with the, I was about to say slap it with the D, that's inappropriate. Please don't cancel me. But once we hit some subdivision on this, we will see that, you know, this isn't gonna, that it's either gonna work well or require just a little bit. Come on, knife. I've just been so extra. I'm just scared. I'm afraid to press any keys when I open it up now, because it's just gonna get extra. Connection, and you know, keep in mind our goal is to survive sub D, not completely be subjugated by it via the all polys must be quads, or you have failed your ancestors situation that I often hear. In our case, we just want to survive subdivision. If we can just get into sub D and actually just have a look that a mother would love, depending on who your mother is. I don't know, maybe your mother has very, very high standards, then it's another story. But let's look at what we have here. I say it's looking pretty not. Jesus, what is this? You know, we just will not talk about that, okay? We'll just be quiet the whole car ride home. Nobody will mention it. So hard to see with a little bit of a mesh in the way, isn't it? But now we can at least start evaluating things with subdivision in place, and we see that, you know, for this area on the inside where we've established a pretty intense flow, things are looking pretty good. However, we see up top that I don't know if this mesh has some doubles, but they need to stop it. And we see that, you know, a lot of the areas that we worked on manually survived pretty well, you know. Bombs bursting through the night, and our flag was still there, sort of thing, you know. So not bad at all. You know, and we have just enough reinforcement to make these really look like nice little divots. You know, we could also deal with these insides, but you know, subdivision has a look to it. You know, machine describes it a little bit more depressingly, but you know, there's a look to subdivision. I'm not gonna jump on a bandwagon and say I hate the look and it's terrible. You know, subdivision has been there through some dark times. In fact, you know, whenever it comes to form creation, subdivision is probably your backup in most cases, because, you know, topology is once established, it cannot lie. Your topology is either sufficient or it is not sufficient. And every time we go in and out of sub D, it's just going to look a little bit better and a little bit better until finally I will talk to you guys about giving up. You know, because at some point you got to just move on to the next portion of the process, be that UVing or, you know, exporting. I was actually thinking about taking it through ZBrush and then to Substance Designer or Painter. So I wanted to send a particular result there. we look at this and it's like a complex bunch of nothing. It's like, how do we solve it? Well, let's shift N, flip them normals, because those normals were just not correct. And we see that this area does look pretty good. Alright, alright. And if we bring everything back, we can remember where we left off. And you know, we've just been working for so long in local mode. And also, since that top Blender crashed, really hasn't been very problematic since then. You know, if you zoom out, you start taking victory laps, you'll just kind of blind yourself to the work that actually needs to be done. So I look at that. Some of those things in the process that I talk about avoiding, they're like so small, but to me, I don't know. I guess they're more important because they translate truly to time loss. And so, you know, there's like a meme about, you know, nonsensically rotating your model versus actually working on it. And I do ponder that meme a lot. Not saying that I do that, but I am mindful of it enough to try to avoid it. So, you know, sometimes I'll work an area and I'm like, I am not pulling the camera out of this model's A until I am done. See, it just starts getting crazy. It automatically jumps into shift the longer I use knife, is the only way I can explain it. And you see how every time I use this, it jumps me into select, and then I have to choose to jump into join. You can also choose your start state in preferences, but I just haven't. So maybe something like that. Looks like Vertimergy caught our boy. And just looking at this, debating on if we should give this a protection loop on the inside like so, or if that would just be just a little bit too much of a gift. We already have double loops protecting one side of it, but we also do have a bit of a geometric contingency building up here. So the question is, how are we going to solve it, and at what level are we going to solve it? Because I definitely made that to be sharp, and you know, we could let it just be handled by sub D. You know, that's one of those things. If you don't have a lot of geometry in an area, sub D will turn every angle you've established into an arc. And you might think, oh, that's cool. Well, I don't know. The difference is a Decepticon versus you know, a Megazord, and you know, you might think, hey, you know, both of those are cool. I like the Megazord. I don't know, but that's a children's show, and you know, Decepticons, they had some good looking ones. There were some good looking Decepticons. I don't know, I might have to watch the movies again. I don't think I'd ever watch those movies again. I don't know if they have a replay value. You know, I think there was a time when the first Transformers movie came out that, you know, I watched it over and over. But after they got to like multiple movies, it's like, oh, these movies are disposable. You're supposed to wipe your mouth with these, and I shouldn't say that in a video. It affect my 3D career, but you know, maybe Michael Bay will let me consult with him on a movie. I'd end up in that same boat. I'd be like, hey, can we put more explosions? I mean, you know, the plot, the plot's good and all, but it's boring. Let's just have them talking through explosions. I mean, it's bound to happen when you're a director, you know. If you think about it, you've never been in his world. So, you know, you might find yourself working on a movie, and then you see that there's just a massive explosion button, and you can just put an explosion anywhere. It's like, you know, these two people talking, explosion. Robots punching each other, you know, necessary explosions. Make them look like their blood's made of kerosene, you know, by having so many explosions happening around them. But I don't know, these are things I think about. Like, I wish I could rant about Halo Infinite, but it would you know, warning, spoilers, you know, sort of thing. So the spoiler I'll give you guys is, you know, go get Game Pass for $1 and then get Halo Infinite. You know, I got all my buddies who are waiting to buy it for $60, and you know, I thought that too. I was like, I love Halo, I'll buy it for $60. You don't gotta buy it for $60. Just you know, just don't. I mean, I love 343 too, but I mean, I think Microsoft built their system the way that they did to do it the way that they did it, so people would use it the way that I'm suggesting. But yeah, if you can get it for $1, then, or even 24 for a month, then yeah, get in there. But yeah, so many questions about that game as I was playing it that I thought about. But I'll save that rant for another video. I'm just looking at this, you know, I think the ones that are sharp down here are cool, and the ones that get smoothed out also are cool. So I'm just bringing these loops together so that we can finally get in and start talking about this area where it's just imploding with the surface. But you can see that, you know, we have survived some of the hardest parts of this. Like, the hardest parts of this are over. And this thing was not made for freaking subdivision conversion. I can't stress that enough. Which is precisely why it was converted. Not because it was easy, but because it was very not easy. You know, I might need a nap after this, but I can't. I have to go back and play Halo. I'm actually working through it on legendary mode, and the game is so hard. You know, I think I'm just gonna beat every Halo on legendary mode now. You know, just have a marathon. Try to get some of my buddies to join me on it. Oh, and then The Matrix is coming out, so, you know, I'll be watching that. Like, I would watch Spider-Man just yesterday, which was also a good movie. You know, I hope to someday rant about that, but, you know, not rant, but that was a good watch. But, you know, nowadays, I don't even feel the need to even say on social media that I consumed something, or even that I enjoyed it. You know, everything's so divisive. You know, just to enjoy something, you've disenfranchised someone who did not enjoy it. And, you know, that marginalizes them, so therefore it's a microaggression, making you an oppressor no better than a colonist. Their words, not mine. But yeah, it was a good movie. Good clean fun. Did hear them say the S word, well, the word shit, a couple of times, and I was just like, wow, what times we live in. I mean, I'm not against it. You know, I'm not like a Christian or anything, but It just caught me off guard. Not what I expected from my neighborhood Spider-Man movie. Also, I'm really curious on how their Multiverse of Madness will turn out. They'll have to have some sort of twist that'll make it worthy of going back to a theater. I mean, I only went for Spider-Man because, you know, Spider-Man. I've been following him and his journey. But Doctor Strange, maybe. You know, we did watch WandaVision. I mean, what else did they talk about? This geometry. Yo, I pressed J, dog. No, I'm kidding. That was my favorite though. I love saying that one. But my keystroke display is always in the corner to tell you guys what keys these are. You know, reducing the need for me to have to tell these keys. I mean, if I'm telling the keys, then I'm taking the job away from, you know, key press's mouth. You know, its kids are gonna starve. I was about to make up some joking names of alternative key press software names, but I'll spare you guys. Wow, we got such a mess happening, but it's getting cleaned up. So something like that, we don't have the mesh looking like it imploded into itself anymore, and our edge is looking just a little bit better. You know, also think about subdivision conversion over, you know, converting it to bevel is, you know, if we were dealing with bevel, we would at least have enough room to determine the width and things like that. But, you know, these things aren't the end of the world. You know, subdivision, you just get what you give. Well, you get what you get based on your loop density. Like the closer your loops are together, the tighter the loop is going to be that you've created with subdivision. So I don't know, I always look at it as me indicating my bevel width at the same time as I'm modeling. Also, I need to lower this desk just a little bit more. All right, let's get in here. And for real, that's what the teenagers are saying nowadays. This model's looking pretty all right. I mean, we still have a little work. Not that, Alt J. Delete faces, grid fill. Maybe something like that, and we'll give everything 3 loops. Dissolve 2. I'm just trying 2 loops now, you know, not saying I recommend it as a style or, you know, it's the 2021 way to work. Just, you know, also if we're tired of our mesh looking like just looking like the US economy, then we could get a triangulate, slap it on here and place it before the sub D, and we'll at least have something like that to look at while we're in this intermediate process. But you know, people always ask me why I put a triangulate before my sub D. It's because n-gons will look terrible with subdivision, but triangles will look like they came from planet Earth. So, you know, it's up to you. Me, I am a big fan of this look as well. So enabling these modifiers is causing a little bit of slowdown, but let's just get in here and you know what I'm gonna do. When I select the whole thing, when I select the whole howdy doody, That means my first move is an inset, because one side's loop is actually good enough to protect, and the other side is bad enough to completely reject. So let's use merge tool. Maybe something like that. And it's probably just easier to 1, 2, 3, M at last, and Shift R. These two, Shift R, and Shift R. And we should probably cross solve it on the way as well. But you know, all these extra you know, I was thinking about giving my cat a phone, and I realized that if she called me, she would only say one thing, and that's to play fetch with her. So I actually got the message on that. I should go play fetch with her right now. But the thing is once I'm playing fetch with her, she just starts playing fetch by herself, and then she doesn't need me. And I'm just standing there looking silly, waiting for her to come back. But yeah, she probably needs some human attention today. So shout out to Apple. She's an unsung cat, except always sung. Now wake up and she's in her cat bed just staring at me, just watching me sleep, making sure I'm not going anywhere. Running away from every time the doorbell is knocked upon or the door is knocked on. These cats will scatter, you know, order a pizza, knock on the door, peace. You know, we order food, DoorDasher comes, peace when they arrive. It's like, I wish these cats hiss, you know, let us know, hey, there's someone here. Also, all these loops are across. They're across something. You know, we can't even reach them all because they're like so skewed. So this might require just a little bit of extra refinement, but I feel like a try every couple of quads isn't going to be so bad because there's loops in between and they're happening on flatty areas. But you know, all these near misses happening, and this is the result of booleans, you know. So just keeping it live isn't gonna suffice for making it not your problem. Definitely your problem. You caused it. And this is the geometry that has resulted. But we see that, you know, within a 2-hour period, we were able to convert this into an adequate mesh. And if we Alt V, look at the wireframe, we see that, you know, this mesh is looking all right. I mean, maybe not all right. I mean, I think he's running for governor of our state, by the way. All right. And we see that there's some geometric questions I ask. Not to the governor, to this mesh. So when it comes to our state is kind of rebellious. They'll just do whatever they want, even if it's in the worst interests of its people. Alright, so something like that. And let's go back to our model peruse. So now I'm using this thing called a 3D mouse. And how do we want to deal with this? We can slide there. basically ending that journey. And we see that, you know, there are some questionable things about the topology, but really all I'm looking for is just end-gone tragedies that could result in shading issues. So let's Alt-V and just toggle off wireframe. And we see in this area that something has happened. So let's go in edit mode and see just what can be done. Alright, zoom it out, rolling it, and we're just looking at, so we have 3 loops protecting this area, and on this side we actually have 2, which is a little more lax, and we see that that actually rectified those shading issues. So sometimes less is more, you know, for the shading. But we're just, you know, rotating it around. You know, this area looks a little iffy. Iffy moms choose GIF. Let's look at it on the other side, this side. So this part's looking a little iffy, and I think the foundation behind the idea of, I mean, not saying this is my idea or anything, I think the foundation behind trying to use 2 loops instead of 3 is that, you know, for lower geometry, having 3 would be nice, but you just don't have that luxury of availability for geometry. So, you know, when those cases arise, try a 2 solution. It still holds tight, watertight, but you end up with something like this. So, yeah, I'm surprised that they will actually talk in a video for this long. I mean, I guess I've talked in videos for longer, but I was really planning on pausing and just kind of jumping into time-lapse mode, but we were able to hang out this whole time. So this is now the body of the spherical drone. You know, we're just looking at areas, just wondering, you know, what, you know, that's all I can say. And the thing about sub-D is sub-D will turn everything into a quad, even triangles. So that's why it's easier for it to be handled by subdivision than end-cons. Anyways, now we are looking at the shape and we have all of our pieces back. And this is the sub-D version. Let me pop open the Blender launcher. The Blender launcher didn't crash specifically because of us. It just crashes because of, I don't even know why it crashes, but it does. It sure does. So just wait on it to pop back open. All right, it'll be, there we go. And it'll be ready for use eventually. I'll check back into that. I mean, I'm starting to feel like it might be hitting its limits or worried about it, but what to convert next? Let's look at this piece. I'm just, you know, this is just folly at this point. You look at this piece and you're like, wow, how is he going to convert that to 2, guys? You better not be. And crash? Just like that. Gotta crash. Blender, you're breaking my heart. In fact, whenever a crash occurs, I hold down the Windows button, I press R, and in your app data local temp, you can actually bring up your crash. And from there, you can actually look at your crash report, and at the very bottom, they will tell you why it happened. And I don't think this one is the most accurate one. I'll catch the next one. I do want to recover that autosave because I don't know if I saved it properly. And also that was at, what's that, 159? Alright. So let's try that again. This time I'm just going to shift click ever scroll. Alright, we'll save that, and I'm also going to save this as a scroll curiosity, and we'll just reopen that spherical, and I'm just going to come back to that file later. And all I wanted to do was just scroll to Boolean right before mirror and just control click on finishing. So that way I could just have the mesh without the other mods. And we'll control T, Alt J, nothing fancy there. Press I, delete faces. And you know, anytime circles are involved, it's going to be a cakewalk. So nothing to ever fear there. So bevel, one loop back can reduce it, and you know, we don't even need that face. So now that's been converted, I am going to Control L, copy object data. I know, not the smartest. Oh. We still have all these modifiers on them. But, you know, that at least deals with that so we can truly be finished. And, well, not truly, because we have a little bit more work, don't we? I'm just going to Control X that. And we can just you know, I will give us the loop that we want. Maybe something like that, and then something like that. And same there. Let's get rid of only faces, grid fill. And we're just gonna roll it till it's sane. You know, I had to set it to 9, but just like that, we have our full connection. We can also turn off auto smooth. Make sure subdivision's off in edit mode. I'm just gonna bring these loops in just to tighten up this geometry. And let's talk about this mesh, because this not even helping. And so we need to apply the boolean. But before applying the boolean, I suppose the boolean was not helping that much. No biggie. I almost want to put a loop here and a loop here, but that's the obsessive behavior I'm trying to reduce in my work. So let's grab this bevel, this loop can go, that loop can stay. Wait, oh yeah, wait, Control Shift Z to redo the undo. I don't press that hotkey a lot, but there we go. Kind of a hard one to press too. Yeah, my fingers remember it. They're like, hey dog. So after this video, I'll be on Google looking up fan theories about, you know, the show that I was watching not ending with the titular character dying. That way I get a season 4. You know, they'll have our boy wake up in the hospital. No memories. Alright. So, all of this, right? I know. Kind of a lazy selection. I didn't even try. And you're like, yeah, what do you mean you didn't try? It's pretty good. So we press I, and let's just mirror it to the other side. You know, this moment in symmetry is brought to you by Mesh Machine. It's a mesh, it's a machine. It's a mesh machine. It's a me. Mesh machine. Just kidding. Alright, so maybe something like this. And we're so close to the end. You know, all we gotta do is just crash it, and that'll extend our journey. Just kidding, I'm not gonna crash the application in order to extend our journey. That would be sadistic. Be like, oh no, we lost an hour of progress. And then give you guys a speech about character. Alright. Alright, maybe something. Alright, something like that. You know, not gonna be looking at too hard on the inside, but we do want to mirror it to the other side. And then when we put subdivision on it, we see that it'll party. It will party. So, with that, we have now converted this shape over to be a subdivision shape. Now, no longer, I don't know what I was saying there, no longer requiring the use of auto smooth. So with everything selected, I can actually go under normals and just, you know, copy the selected, just make sure everything has auto smooth turned off. And just like that, we can peruse our shape. I see a few areas that could probably be improved on a solution. However, you know, first passes are always a little rough, but we could get in there and do a little bit of a central cleanup just to tighten up some areas. You know, tightening things up is always going to be also a solution for mitigating any sort of shading issues. You know, perfection is just one of those things. It really depends on how hard you're looking for it when it comes to looking for problems. But if you're looking for a problem, you'll definitely be able to find it. Maybe that's a moral for myself and my propensity for finding problems. So I'm just going to try mitigating this area. Maybe it's something like that. You know, and on another level, I just want to grab all of this and just flatten it using flatten. I mean, there's two different flattens. There's one inside of Mesh Machine, also HardOps has one. But I almost feel it's not even completely necessary. I'm probably over analyzing the shape at this point anyways, and I should probably just wrap up this video. So let's slap a material on it. Maybe a different material for each surface, just so we can get a good look at it inside of render mode, and we still see areas that can be refined. I mean, like I said, we could be chewing at this particular mesh all day, and it was definitely constructed in a way to make it a little bit more painful than usual to deal with. So looking at this top area, I see, you know, anywhere where the solution is just less than perfect, it's going to be exposed into shading and going to point itself out to you in the form of just inconsistencies on the surface. So be prepared for a battle. We'll slide this in, slide these two in, and we're just rotating around looking at it. Got this nice shiny material with the light hitting it just to really give us stress to the surface and show us how bad things could be. You know, if we made it more matte, it would hide this a lot better, but we're just looking for a few areas to clean up before we wrap this. And I think I actually made this worse. Yeah, that black streak didn't have to be there. And it's because my inset actually goes so far inside, which it just doesn't even have to. It didn't even have to have that stress area. But let's Alt V, look at it via the wireframe, and we can see that this area is definitely a curiosity as well, showing that, you know, there's always a little bit more cleanup that's able to be done in order to get things just a little bit better. However, this video has already gone on for 2 hours, so with that, I will press Alt V, toggle off wireframe, and end the video here for now. And thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.